Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so rapt to see you like in 3D because I feel like I've followed you for so long. It's like, here we are. And this is your first podcast interview. This is crazy for me.
First podcast. Definitely sitting on the other side, like from years ago having a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, never actually been a guest on a podcast.
Yeah.
So.
And how was it? We were just briefly talking about your podcast. I want to know, well, obviously a few years ago now, but how was that? Like, is it something that you loved doing? Like, how did it all come about?
I think it just kind of happened. So I'd recently formed a friendship with Sarita. We'd kind of met through Instagram.
Yep.
And we were like, you know what, let's just start a podcast. It actually, not a lot of thought went into it. You could probably tell, like it was very kind of off the cuff. It was called Couch Confidentials, and we literally just spoke shit. Like every episode was just talking, like rambling on about different things. Yeah. We had guests on to speak about like relationships, a lot of random stuff, but like the kind of things that you would sit down and have a chat with your bestie about.
Yes.
Those things that you don't necessarily talk to your husband about, but the things that you really talk to your girlfriends about. So that's pretty much what it was about.
No, I love that. And for those listening, as I said, I've got Rachel here with me. She's a mum of 2 boys. Yes, go boy mums.
Yeah.
I'm one too. And a content creator, beauty influencer with a sizable social media community. I want to know first up, how do you create a sizable Instagram community?
Do you know what? I'd have to say probably up until the last 12 months, I felt like I was definitely like more micro. There was a lot of growth in the last 12 months, especially on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I think there were a few, let's call them viral videos that like accumulated a lot of followings or a lot of follows from those videos. But I had literally started very organically. I was on maternity leave with my youngest. I'd started posting just makeup tips, beauty tips for other mums. I think kind of going back to what you were saying earlier before the podcast started, I was in a finance role. It was corporate. It was very analytical. And I think I craved the creative side. And I'd always loved makeup. I used to get like friends and family asking me tips all the time. So I kind of just started posting from there, and it literally just grew very organically, very naturally. I didn't get any brand alignments for probably 12 months, and then I probably didn't start earning money for maybe a little longer than that. So it was definitely kind of like that hobby turned into a bit of a side hustle that then turned into the full-time gig.
When did you start your Instagram? How many years ago was it now?
I've had it for so Leo will be almost 11, so probably 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time.
I feel like every time I speak to people, I guess, who come on the show who are sort of at such a great position from either a community perspective, having a lot of people who follow them, or at the height of their business career or whatever it looks like. Often, on average, they'll say, I've been doing this for at least 10 years. And then I sit there going, cool, I've been doing my podcast for nearly 5. So that's humbling because it just goes to show it's not no one is an overnight success. No. You can't just take a couple of photos and then, look at you, you look on Instagram, you're doing so well, collaborating a lot with brands and things like that. But that is 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Right?
It definitely takes a long time. Well, for me, I feel like it has. There's definitely those rare instances where some people just kind of blow up overnight. But I think for myself and for a lot of the people that I know that are still like in the game, it's kind of been that bit of a long slog.
Would you say consistency is how you got there? What tips would you have for others?
Consistency, just be authentic, stick to what you really, I guess, know and what you really love, because that really comes across. That's pretty much it, but consistency for sure. And it's hard. It is hard when it is like something that you're doing on the side, because you're kind of managing, like for me, it was a full-time job and then the family and then trying to kind of commit and invest some quality time into it. But it ended up paying off.
Now, no full-time job. Like that is your full-time job. Yeah. And feel a lot more fulfilled knowing that you are leaning into your creative element.
Yeah. That like finance, that feels like a completely different life.
Yeah.
Like it literally feels like a lifetime ago.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you become full-time?
So 2019, so November 2019 is when I finished up at the bank. And this has been full-time ever since.
Wow. And so your boys, because I was thinking, how old would they have been when you were able to have the flexibility to be home? And
look, I have to say, so with my previous job, they were very good. So I had flexibility to know that I could still drop them off at school in the morning, get to the office when I did, and then leave in enough time so I could pick them up. Like I never did before and after school care because that was definitely that was really important to me. And I guess, it was nice to have that flexibility with them and then spend more time at home with them. But so it was definitely, being able to be flexible and work around the kids is really important to me.
Yeah, 100%. I can attest to that as well. I just think also because I tended to have, I did have parents that were working all the time, and I know that everyone does the best they can. I'm so grateful for their work ethic, but I also felt like they were never really at the assemblies or they were never at pick up or drop off. So for me as well, I think you weigh it up with what makes sense for you and your family.
And if you can make it work.
And see what works, absolutely. Yeah. In the earlier years of parenting, what comes to mind as sort of one of the main challenges, the thing that you wouldn't have really expected that you had to sort of navigate?
I think the baby to toddler phase is something else. Like I think it changes you so much in a way. Like, look, I didn't have postnatal depression, but I definitely had a bit of the baby blues, like definitely with Max. Yeah. But I think as well, everything changes for the mum. So we almost, I wouldn't say that we give up because obviously, it's the biggest blessing ever, but everything changes for us and very little changes for the dad. And I think in those early years, I feel like they're not useless, but they're almost useless when they're babies. Like, so the most that I'd probably find that I would get from Phil in those early years was he was home to bath them every night. But apart from that, everything else was on me. Yeah. And I think that put a strain on our relationship for sure. But I think now looking back, like it is so normal, and speaking to so many other people, they're like, if you didn't have like a shit relationship or go through some crap with your partner when your kids were like babies, toddlers, then you're very, very lucky. But it's just so common for it to cause a bit of I wouldn't say friction, but it definitely causes the relationship to be very different.
100%. Yeah. You go from Footloose and Fancy Free, where are we going for brunch on a Sunday morning, to like, oh my gosh, overnight, this baby to look after. Yeah. And you're trying to navigate these two different roles, and you're kind of like, the resentment piece is huge. Oh my gosh. Speak to so many parents, and that is one of the biggest things that comes up. Like the mum, typically on average, the mum's mental load and then feeling like, well, I can't bloody delegate everything to my partner, but there are things I just want my partner to know to do. Yeah. And then like, how do I communicate that when I haven't slept and I don't know how to, like, where to start with even that conversation. So I'm just going to do it all, but now I'm resentful that I'm doing it all. Yeah. Like, because
shouldn't they know? Like, they should know to do all this. Like, why is it on me to do all this?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know for me, like, I think about, like, for my first, at about 9 or 10 months, for my 10 months into parenting, I was kind of like, that's when I lost it. Yeah. I lost it at a dinner, like, just after a dinner party. So we were literally there. I turn to my husband and I go to him, look, it's, 10 minutes to 12. We've got the babysitter. I've been thinking in my head, well, she'll clock off at 12, get home. I need to sleep. Who knows when the little one's going to wake up. We've got things to do tomorrow. So I turn to my hubby and I'm like, all right, so we'll slowly head off. And he goes, oh no, sits back and he goes, we can have one more wine. And everyone on the table's like, oh, you can't leave yet. One more wine. Yeah, no worries. And I looked at him and I'm like, look at you over there. I've got steam coming out of my ears because I'm like, your life, which hasn't even bloody changed. And mine, like, why am I the one worrying about all this stuff? And then like we eventually went home and then I like blew up. And but the worst part was I couldn't articulate what it was. All I kept saying is, my life has changed. Yes. Yours hasn't. Yes. I know it has to some extent, but it really hasn't. Where do we go to from there? And so that was a massive disconnect. Yeah. I don't know if you can relate to that.
100%. But and that scenario is very similar, except mine was at a wedding. And we were needing to leave a wedding early, and it very much blew up into a very big thing. But I felt like it was just Groundhog Day. I felt like I was stuck looking at the exact same four walls, the breastfeeding, just everything being so like, and then you would be counting down the hours going, it's almost their nap time. And then, so I kind of, in a way, you kind of wished away the days, which is sad when you think about it. But when it's not, and I feel like it's never going to be an even load in those early years.
Right.
And the resentment was absolutely there. Like if he could go to work, like how lucky he gets to leave the house to go to work, how lucky he gets to have like a lunch with his mates at work, and how lucky that he gets to then go play golf on the weekend. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Like, how is that fair that you then get to leave again and go play golf?
Yes.
So it does. It causes a lot. And I think when the communication and that disconnect, I think like for us, it was almost like this years of this slow burn of us just kind of just disconnecting. And it wasn't like this immediate thing, but it was just we got to a point where I thought that we would divorce. Like I thought we are heading towards divorce. And it wasn't until we had both agreed that we would do some marriage counselling. Back then, if somebody had have told me back in those years that we would be in where we are now and the relationship that we have now and the life that we have now, like I just would not have believed it, because back then all I could see was divorce. And like now I think like we're like so lucky and like I love him to death and like we have this amazing relationship. It's definitely not perfect, you know, but I just can't believe we are so happy and in such a good like place with our marriage. And and the thing is it just changes so much and you see different sides of them. And like he became like this, like he was always a really good dad, but I think the more that the boys grew up and he was doing more, like they needed him more in different ways, like you just see like he's an incredible dad, he's an incredible father, all those things, and he actually probably does more for them now than I do. Just because the age, just as they grow. Yes.
And I wonder if it's also maybe having boys. I don't want to stereotype too much, but there is an element of the boys and the dads and that sort of relationship that's quite unique as well. I want to go back to, because this is what comes up a lot with parents, that feeling of like, I mean, I speak to, for example, a lot of mothers groups, and they're like, I'm kind of at a point where I'm not sure if my relationship will continue because we've lost intimacy. I'm just resentful. We're passive aggressive. I've got no time to deal with it. I'm sleep deprived. I don't even care. This is not the same person that I married. Like, what the hell? And I'll often be like, cool, have we communicated that? Have we, tried to set up structures? Maybe is there an opportunity for you guys to have a date night or a date day, or, just have a bit of time together? Oh no, we haven't done that, but we don't have time. So there's always this tension. For you, it sounds like you were sitting in that for a while and you were going in separate directions. What was the point in which you went, right, something's got to change? I mean, you went to see someone. What was happening in your life at that point?
I feel like I hated him. And I did, and it wasn't true hate. It was just like it had gotten so bad that. And because we weren't communicating, and then it's all like I think as well, like understanding each other's love languages. Like I feel like all of those things really came into play, like understanding that. I think before you have kids, you don't really, things just kind of work. And so I think like marriage counselling for us, it wasn't about leaving there with any amazing tips or tools. I think for us it was going there and just having a space to talk, knowing the other person couldn't crack the shits and walk away. So we had that space to really openly talk about our feelings and know the other person had to listen. And then really understanding love language. Like my love language is like acts of service. So do shit for me, do shit around the house, and I am more attracted to you. And I appreciate you more, and I feel like you are doing the things that you kind of need to be doing, kind of thing,
What's
and for
his?
him, he's touch. Like he's always been, and that's I probably should have known that because he's always been that way, super touchy-feely, super affectionate, and I haven't always been that way. But so, and then when we're in that part of that the strained part of our marriage where he still feels like he needs that, and I'd be like, no. And pretending I'd be asleep before he'd get to bed, things like that. Now it's like I don't want to go to sleep without him there. So it's just time and communication and really understanding.
100%. There's so much power in that understanding piece. And I'm the same, like my husband's touch. I feel like I'm all of them. I need all of them.
Yeah.
Like, Jules, you have to figure it out because, but he's definitely
Today
touch.
It's touch, but tomorrow's access service.
Exactly. Yeah. But I do think there's so much power in understanding that because particularly as mums, we are often so touched out by our children who are all over us that the last thing we want to do is put our touch anywhere else. Yeah. And if we're not conscious of it, then I think it's obvious how that distance can just start. Like they're feeling a bit neglected perhaps on the acts of service front. Yeah. I've heard from dads who have said, well, I didn't want to jump in and necessarily do all the things because my partner was just handling it and I knew she'd probably crack it at me if I did it wrong or if I, loaded the dishwasher wrong. Yeah. This is because tensions are heightened in that household when you haven't slept, etc. Did you get down to the bottom of perhaps why acts of service wasn't being met at that time?
It's probably a lot of my fault as well because I've always been, I wouldn't say controlling in that way, but like I've just always been the one to do things. Yeah. So like rather than ask, and I can't sit still. So I'm one of those people that I'm constantly cleaning, constantly tidying. I can't sit for 5 minutes. I'll be like, well, there's washing to do. Yeah. So I kind of never in a way allowed him to do it because I was always already doing it. So he would then say, but you didn't give me a chance to do it. So, I couldn't go to sleep at night if there was dishes in the sink, whereas you kind of have to learn, well, if he said he's going to do them, I've just got to let him do it, leave them there until the morning. So you have to let go of perfection and stuff like that, which was really hard for me.
100%. Yeah, what you're saying resonates so much. I want to know for those listening who are sitting in a really tough time, you've been there, what advice would you give them? What comes to mind? What would have helped you at that time? Obviously there are resources out there. That's an amazing place to start. What advice would you give?
Speak to your friends. I feel like a lot of people in relationships tend to keep it hidden because they feel ashamed or embarrassed, or they almost look at their friend's relationship and think they're perfect. I don't want to go to them and be embarrassed that my husband's not like them. But number one, I can assure you every relationship has faults. Every person has faults and there is not one marriage that is perfect. But speak to your friends to get advice. But also I found, and this is probably good where the environment I was working in back then, being in finance, predominantly male-dominated industry, and I had some close male friends at work that I would speak to about some things, and they kind of gave me a male perspective. So I think that's also important. If you do have any male friends in your life or a brother or just your dad that you can go to and ask, I think that can help too, because sometimes understanding the male perspective can be really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. A final question that I ask all my guests. So how has parenthood changed you as a person?
I feel like, gosh, it's completely changed the person that I am, but the way I see the world and the way that I see life and also just what I think I used to before kids, my idea of success or the goals that I had in life have completely changed. So I think like I'm probably too obsessed with my family. Like I say that all the time, like I'm obsessed with my boys. I want to be with them all the time. I want, to create the most amazing life for them. Yeah. I want to do everything with them. Like my husband's like, when are we going to be able to go on holidays without the kids? I'm like, no, but I want them to always be with us. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think, I don't know, maybe I was just meant to be a mum because I just love being a mum. Yeah. I think that's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, and we can't love them too much, right?
Yeah, I know. We do have to like slowly let them go though. Like I've got one that like it kills me. He just started high school and he's like just overnight doesn't really need me anymore. And I remember reading somewhere that they say you should make yourself redundant to your kids, and it sounds really awful. Like how can you make yourself redundant to them? But I'm like, it makes so much sense because you want them to learn to do everything in life and not need you, because we're kind of almost selfish in a way. Like we do too much for them and that's for us really. It's not really for them. So yeah.
I know that tween teen years, I'm nervy about that because I'm kind of like, like they're not going to want to be,
How old are yours?
Mine are 4.5 and 6. So I've got the 4 and
really sneak up on you.
I love hearing from the parents with the older kids because I'm like, cool, I need to just prepare myself because like that's just normal. Yeah. Eventually the teen years, they're going to go and then they'll come back, right? So it's just like, as you said, talking to friends who might be experiencing it as well to normalize that experience because I'm the same. I love when my kids hard. I think most of us, do to an extent.
I know.
So, lastly, what's next for you and what would you like to share with our audience?
What's next? So, so I launched Hair Hero in August last year. So that was my little creation. So we're finally getting the trademark, which should come through in the next couple of weeks, which I'm hoping.
Amazing.
Which means that the next sort of phase of what I'm hoping to do with Hair Hero can, I guess, start. But apart from that, it's just work as per usual. We are just slaves to the boys and their soccer. We've got an overseas trip for their soccer, which is in 6 weeks. So we head to Spain and Portugal for a soccer tournament over there, which is super exciting. Yes. So we'll get to see family as well, kind of turn it into a bit of a holiday.
Yep.
But that's pretty much it. Just work and soccer.
Yeah, love it. It's like, boy mum. Oh, I shouldn't say boy mum actually because there's a lot. I think there's, most sports are very much favoured by both genders, but I can very much relate as a boy mum. That whole soccer, sitting at the sidelines on those cold mornings.
It's going to get worse.
So relate.
Let me tell you, it becomes every day.
Oh God.
Yeah, every day. You don't get any days. Like I'm like, when's the last time we went out for brekkie or even went out for a dinner?
Yeah.
Because you just there's no time.
Sell your soul to the sport.
Yeah, that's it.
I will pop your details in the show notes for those listening to find you. Thank you so much again, Rachel, for your time.
Thank you for having me.